So I have a little quip that I like to give, and that is don't plan your life around an income. Plan the life you want, and then build an income around that. Right? Live the life you want to live, and find a way to build an income around it. And so that's kind of the philosophy I've operated on since 2012. You asked me about books earlier, and another one that just came to mind that was hugely influential for me back in about 2010, 2011 is The 4 Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss.
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting show of the About That Water podcast, where we help you build strong financial habits. And I have the honor to bring on John Ensley, who is a leading financial planning revolution to help you take back control of your money, your lifestyle, and your retirement plan. So he has founded his company back in 2012. And has been running this thing for so long. And I have to say that I am honored to have him on the show to kind of help you take your money to that next level and help you build those strong habits as you enter retirement and beyond. So how are you doing today, John?
I am awesome, Anthony. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited about it.
No problem, man. Thank you for coming through and spending your time with me today to talk about, finances. This is one of the things that a lot of people have to deal with living in a capitalist society. So, how did you kind of navigate your way through it to then start helping others?
Absolutely. Let me go back in time a little bit. My journey, so to speak, really begins. I could go all the way back to the late 90s, but I won't. I'll kind of flash forward a little bit. But in the early 2000s, I took some funds that I had in a retirement plan from a company I had worked for, and started a subdivision, a small subdivision. I was going to invest in real estate and do that whole thing. And so my journey really starts out of that experience, which was ultimately a failure. So I had these lots. I was dividing them. I was going to build spec homes on them. And I was about halfway through building the first spec home in 2008.
Oh,
yeah, you kind of see where that story's probably going. And and I made some mistakes. I brought on too much debt trying to get the project up and running and going, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is it all imploded in 2008 and 9, and lost the property, and really just kind of hit rock bottom. Both from that investment standpoint and personally. A divorce struck about the same time, and I had a day job where I was in commission sales, and of course, when the Great Recession, all my customers cut their purchases, so my income dropped by about 50%. It was just a really dark period of time. But it was also a wake-up call. So I'm actually grateful for the experience, because it's my life prior to 2008, 2009, and my life after were two completely different stories as a result of having this wake-up call. So I'm super grateful for the experience, even though at the time it was harrowing. Right? It was terrible.
Yeah, because the 2008 timeframe it's a lot.
Oh yeah, a lot going on there. But the main thing is that it sent me on what I now refer to as a journey of self-discovery. And I really jumped into books, also blogs and the online world as well. But I read a lot of books, hundreds of books. And I was really just looking I felt out of control. And I wanted to find a way to put myself back in control of my financial life. And so I read a lot of books and learned a lot of things. And the first thing I learned is that I had to change the way I think about finance, about money, about the financial system, all of it. Because a lot of the things that I believed to be true, as I did all this learning, I came to understand are not true. And so in the course of all this, there was a point where I was on a webinar, and there was an advisor, and he was walking through this example with this couple, and they had a house and they had some home equity. And then he started talking about something that blew my mind. And he was talking about a cash value life insurance policy, and they were building equity in this policy, and he mapped it out over 30 years. And understand, I kind of sat back in my chair, because at that point I hated the whole idea of life insurance. right? Why would I want to be worth more dead than alive? All of these kind of things. I just hated the whole idea. So it got my attention. It was my first exposure that somehow the life insurance policy could be something more than a death benefit. There's something else going on there. And so that really got my attention. I did more research. I found a couple more books, and one of them being Bank on Yourself, written by Pamela Yellen in 2009. And as I learned more about it, I suddenly came to the realization that this approach, and it's a tool, right? Life insurance, but it's also a philosophy. It's also an approach. This approach could put me back in control. This approach could create a barrier between me and my financial life and kind of some of the worst parts of the financial system. And so I just got very passionate about it and met with an advisor, set up my own policies before so I have no background in financial services prior to this. And so that's what led me, after a couple of years of using the system and getting comfortable with it and getting very passionate about it, that I think every family in America should have this tool at some level in their financial plan. And so I was ready for a career change. So I did a kind of 180 degree, got licensed, completed a whole bunch of training, and launched my practice in 2012, specifically to help people implement this particular approach.
Wow. So, I mean, first I'll commend you on first digging into yourself and finding out the core piece that got you into the situation that you were in, and actually take you now, like breaking down the habits and breaking down the stuff that took you to where you were to now where you are today. And it's obviously, it shows that within that 4-year time frame from 2008 to 2012, you're obviously digging into those books. Like, I know you talked about the book as far as Banking on Yourself. Was there another book that really kind of catapult you into this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a list of about 20 books that I feel like had the most impact. And when I'm working with clients, I kind of joke with them that if I could get everyone I meet to study these 20 books and internalize the lessons in them, all they'd really need me for is to push a little paperwork around, because they'd get it. So there were lots of books. So Bank on Yourself obviously is kind of central to my story, but some of the other books out there that had a huge impact would be Henry Hazlitt has a great book called Economics in One Lesson. It's short, it's pretty easy read, and it's one of the best primers on economics that I've ever run across. So that's a great one. Other ones, The Creature from Jekyll Island is a great book. It's been around a long time. Talks about how the Federal Reserve was formed back in the early 1900s. So there's a lot of books along those lines that can give you a better understanding of what is the financial system, how does it work, and understanding it will help you avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yeah, because we talked about you mentioned the financial system. So how is it really chaotic or corrupt in your mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, I can give you a really good example of what I mean, because I'm not talking about some conspiracy theory kind of corruption where there's I don't know, some high level organization that's just got it in for all of us. I don't believe that. But what I mean by corrupt, okay, well, here's an example. So we've all read statistics that the stock market or the S&P 500 has returned, let's say 9% over the last however many years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is. Okay. What do you think that means to most people as it pertains to their money, their personal finances?
That I'm not sure.
So most people will tell me that it means that if I put my money in that market over that period of time, my money should grow by 9% a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the example. Let's say you're an advisor and you work for a big national brokerage firm, and I decide to work with you, and I deposit $10,000 and you're going to invest it for me. You've convinced me that you can grow my money.
Right.
And so over the first year right? You do really well. You pick some great options and you double my money.
Right.
Okay. So I go from 10 to 20,000, 100% return.
Yep.
Right. All right. Now, unfortunately, Anthony, in year 2, those bets that you made in year 1 didn't work out as well. And you lost half my money. Okay. So I went from 10 to 20, back to 10,000, right?
Right.
Over 2 years. Okay. So that's a minus 50% return.
Correct.
Okay. So now we can do a little bit of simple arithmetic on averages, and 100 plus minus 50 gives us 50. Yep. Divided by the 2 years. Anthony, that's a 25% rate of return.
Sounds good.
I started with 10,000. How much did I end up with?
Should be at what is it, 5,000?
10,000. Right? I have the same amount of money I started with at the end, but I got a 25% rate of return. Right? So there's these kinds of things. That's what I was talking about, where you believe something to be true, and then all of a sudden you realize it's not true. So when you hear that the S&P 500 returned 9% over the last 40 years, that doesn't mean that a single dollar of your money invested there would have grown by 9% per year. That only means the average change in the market was 9% per year on average. It has zero bearing on actual dollars invested in that market. But yet this is what the entire financial planning industry operates on, average rates of return, even though they're completely theoretical. They have no bearing in reality. So it's things like that I recognized as I was doing all of this studying and learning, that there's a lot of information out there that leads us to believe doing a certain thing is the right thing, when in fact it's misleading. Now, I'll leave it to the conspiracy theorists to decide whether that is a result of design, that somebody's got some diabolical plan and they put this information out there, or I probably lean more towards the other way that says it's just coincidence. It's just there's so much information flowing that some of it's inaccurate. And so the key component here is education. You have to educate yourself and understand how things actually work so that you can recognize the misinformation that's out there. And it's not an easy thing to do, but that's really the key.
But that's the only thing that we kind of taught, and we thinking that we're doing the right thing. So how do we kind of change our mindsets, or change, like, what habits should we have to make sure that we continue to get ahead instead of just following the status quo?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest habits that is so critical for life, not just finances, is critical thinking. To be able to analyze not only the data, but the motivations behind the data. So another story that I like to tell, if you don't mind, you're familiar with Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, right? American icon from way back when, mm-hmm. And a figure in the United States. Yep. So in 1903, can you imagine why Thomas Edison would be electrocuting live animals on camera?
No.
That's a weird question, isn't it?
Yes.
So here's the backstory there. Thomas Edison was in a head-to-head battle with a guy named Nikola Tesla at the time. Tesla is the inventor of the AC generator, alternating current electricity generator. And at the time, the Niagara power plant had a bid out for what kind of power they were going to generate, AC or DC. Edison was a proponent of DC. Tesla was a proponent of AC. So Edison staged these really horrific scenes on camera, essentially what I would call it as a marketing message. Right? He was trying to prove to people that AC electricity was too dangerous to use so that he could win the contract. Now, is AC electricity too dangerous to use? I doubt it. The whole world runs on it today, right? So probably not, but it was just a marketing message. So one of the habits I think is really critical is to make sure you're not making your financial decisions based on somebody's marketing messages. Take the time to actually do some analysis, understand the numbers, understand what's going on and how that relates to you and your goals and objectives, and make your decisions based on that, not based on a blog you read that said, the stock market is bad, or life insurance is bad, or, whatever. Look into it, find out what the facts are, and do your own critical thinking.
Yeah. So going back to that critical thinking piece, because this brings us up to the second segment, which is talking about like what separates successful people from those who never ever get started in this journey. So it's like pretty much what should we look into when we choosing our finances? I mean, most people get their 401k because they told to get one from their employer. Some people, I believe, with the government, they just started doing the Roth TSB, and they doing like the Roth 401k. It's been out for a while. But like, what is it? Like, what type of things should we really take a deep dive into?
So I think the very first thing someone has to come to grips with is what do they want their life to look like, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, in a modern society, money is pretty central to everything we do. So if you want your life to look a certain way in 5 years, 10 years, at retirement, whatever that time frame is, make sure that you're using tools that make sense. Right. If I speak to clients all the time, and they'll tell me, well, I want to retire when I'm 53 and get a sailboat and sail around the Caribbean for a few years, or, whatever the case may be. And they've got all of their money tied up in a place they can't touch till they're 59 and a half. So the question is, how does that tool line up with your objective? It's completely mismatched. So make sure the tools that you're looking into line up with what you actually want to do.
Okay, can you give us like, because I know in your life, from what I've heard, is that you actually sail.
I do. I'm an avid sailor. Very passionate about that too. It's my two great passions in life: is financial planning and sailing.
Because and did you plan your life around sailing when you were doing your retirement planning and so forth?
So partially.
Okay.
It is, and still partially. So I have a little quip that I like to give, and that is don't plan your life around an income. Plan the life you want, and then build an income around that. Right, live the life you want to live, and find a way to build an income around it. And so that's kind of the philosophy I've operated on since 2012. So you asked me about books earlier, and another one that just came to mind that was hugely influential for me back in about 2010, 2011 is The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss.
It's a great book.
And so when I was building my practice and making that career change, that was a key piece for me, is to build a lifestyle around it. And so, I've run my practice virtually, so without a brick and mortar location since 2015, and actually until recently operated about half the year out from Mexico down near the Sea of Cortez, where I also was working with a sailing school, teaching people how to cruise, big sailboats.
That is awesome. I mean, to have your career like kind of help influence your other passion, and man, you're living the dream.
Life is good, I'm telling you. What really gets me going every day is I want to help everybody I can do the same thing. I mean, what do you want to do? Let's map out a path to get there, and we just have to remember that the what I call cookie cutter approach is probably not going to work for more than a certain percentage of people. So we have to look at every individual situation and map out a very customized, personalized path to the dreams that you want to live. And maybe the big thing is just believe you can live the dream, right? You just have to do it.
Well, because you also left your awesome job that you had to kind of start this business. So for those of the people that are either listening to this on their lunch break or listening to this while they're inside of a meeting that they really don't want to be part of, what should they do to kind of get started in their journey to kind of, finally forego their 9 to 5?
Yeah. So start learning. The best advice I can give is start reading, and that includes the online material. Just think critically when you do it, right? But just start consuming all the information you can about what it takes in terms of finances. And then the second thing is map it out, get clear about what you want, set those goals. So they're going to change. That's okay, but set the goals, shoot for a target, and then learn as much as you can, and then take the first step. One step at a time.
Nice. Yeah, because that's the only way you can get to 10,000 miles is taking that one step, right?
Single step is where it all begins.
Because the reason why I ask this, because I do have a lot of people who are listening who are interested in starting their own business, whether if they want to get into vending machines or they want to go into some of the other boring businesses as far as like car washes or mailboxes and so forth. And then back to what you constantly keep saying, which is make sure you have your dream of where you want to, where you want your life to be at and what you foresee your life to be, and actually go around that. So, so that means it just ultimately you just got to dig in, but digging in is just one part of the whole, as you could say, equation. Why didn't you give up back in maybe 2009 or 2010 and just go back to and stay at your 9 to 5? What kept you going?
You bet. So if the job that I had, I was very good at and I hated, right? I spent 20 years of my life working in the corporate world in a kind of a sales environment. And I was very good at that. I generated great results, but I had zero passion for it. There was absolutely nothing I cared about in that industry or in that business. It was just a job, right? And it paid well and all of that. So what kept me going, and it wasn't easy in 2012, 2013, getting things off the ground, especially because doing it kind of outside the box, virtually, et cetera. But what kept me going was the fact that I was passionate about what I did every single day. I just looked forward to jumping in and working with people and helping people with these tools that I had discovered. So it was that passion that kept me going, knowing that I was doing something every day that actually mattered, even when it hadn't really succeeded yet. I was still passionate about it, right? I was still, hey, this is work that matters. I'm really doing things that help people, and that's that's really what kept me motivated. Is just being engaged every day with what I do.
Nice. Because one of the things that I just recently talked about, which is trying versus training. And it seems like you have trained yourself. You weren't just dabbling into finances. You were actually training yourself to be a better version of yourself. So that, I mean, ultimately you just found out that you can help other people do the same thing. But you're really just training and honing in on your skill of finances. So that brings up the third segment, which is your futures. What skills or habits that you feel that's going to take you to that next level?
That's a great question, Anthony. And part of that for me is I'm not a person who really likes to be the center of attention, right? So I'm here talking to you on your show, and I'm so in the future I'm really working on getting comfortable with getting out there and talking about what I do and how it can help people in a more public way. And I think that's really the key is understanding. I went through a period here over the last couple of years where I would ask myself, kind of meditating in the morning, all right, what must I become? What must I become? Right? What must I become to get to where I want to go? And that's kind of it, right? I need to step out of the shadows and just be who I know I am and help more people.
That's awesome. Yeah, because some of us, I mean, it depends on who you talk to. Some of us like to hustle to be in the shadows, and some of us try to hustle. And I like that you're trying to come out a little bit more, and that's really great because some people are actually afraid of their gift. And I'm glad that you're actually taking your gift and actually trying to bring it out there so everybody can see you and be part of your journey, and also you be part of their journey as well. It's like a hand in hand type thing. So I do appreciate you for doing that. Because I know real estate is your thing as well. So you might have a whole nother show on real estate. But before we go to the final four questions, is there anything that you want to leave the customers with before we dive into it?
So I guess I would say that keep an open mind, look for outside the box ideas. And of course, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to walk you through some outside the box ideas and see what's a fit.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. You ready for the final 4 questions?
All right, let's
All
do
right.
it.
So, number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth to me means freedom. Freedom to do with your time what you want, when you want, how you want. If you have the resources to do that, you're wealthy.
Awesome. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
I think I started the show with that. It was the that debacle in 2008 was for sure so many mistakes there, and some of it a result of the economic conditions at the time, but some of it a result of the mistakes I made. One of the things I talk about a lot is and the reason I started my practice in 2012 is that I've been to many advisors over the years, and nobody ever told me about bank on yourself or this life insurance, cash value life insurance approach. And of course, being a numbers guy, I've gone back and done the numbers and realized that if somebody had just said that to me or told me about that or made me aware that that existed before I started that project, it might have changed the whole outcome of the project. So hands down, that's probably the biggest mistake ever was jumping into that project with too little information.
Gotcha. This is a side question, because for some reason I always come up with better questions when people ask me to answer that question.
Awesome.
Is the thing about learning that information about banking on yourself, because I did a whole show, several shows on life insurance, and you hear about term, you hear about whole life. Now, my listeners know about this, that you can actually combine the two. You can do a little bit of term, some whole life. But what would be, well, I'll ask you this then. When it comes to whole life, how did you actually take advantage of your whole life? Well, what type of life policy did you utilize? Because I think there's a IUL, there's a GUL, and there's a something UL. I forgot the.
Yes, there's a number of different varieties. I only work with whole life. I own whole life. That's the only kind of policies I work with. I don't, and it's probably beyond the scope maybe of this discussion why I don't use any of the ULs, but exclusively focus on whole life, properly structured whole life, I should say.
So can you do a little deep dive into what a properly structured whole life would look like?
Absolutely. So a whole life insurance policy, number one's been around a long time, close to 200 years. And in its original plain Jane form, the whole life most people have heard of accumulates cash, the cash value accumulation in a whole life policy pretty slowly, right? It takes many years to build up. So properly structured refers to the way that I approach a whole life contract. And that is, we're going to include a couple of riders on that policy. And we're going to, the premium will be funded in the right ratios into those riders so that the cash value accumulates much faster, as much as 40 times faster. And so even in the very first, second, third, early years of that policy, we're accumulating significant amounts of cash value in the policy. And those cash values are then accessible in the form of policy loans. And this is where the bank on yourself concept comes from. And we can then use those cash values in the short term. And the cool thing about the policies is that while we're using it in the short term, the underlying policy is continuing to grow as if we didn't pull any of that money out over the long term. So we kind of get double duty out of it. And I describe the whole thing as a system. We use the unique features of properly structured whole life as a system for saving, investing, and borrowing.
So that you can buy a boat and goes,
I in fact have purchased a boat with using my policy.
Because the reason why I asked that question, because a lot of people are curious about that as you can say, the shadow realm of the life insurance. Like you hear about it, but not too many people actually take time out to explain it in detail.
Exactly. and connecting with someone like myself who has been involved in this a long time, and be careful online. There's a lot of information, especially in the last couple of years. Infinite banking has become a real keyword out there. Yeah, keyword. And I've seen some YouTube videos where this is being explained just absolutely wrong. So you just have to connect with someone that has the experience and the training to do this the right way and explain it to you the right way.
Awesome. Yeah, I know this is a pre-recording, but maybe we have to have you on live so we can actually pull up some of those wrong ways and actually digest what a proper way to structure your life insurance as well. So I think
that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. All right. Number 4. What is your favorite dish? Oh, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. Pause. Number 3, what is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
Well, I have to say, boy, that's a tough one because I read a lot of non-financial stuff too. So I have to say one of my all-time favorites I mentioned already, which is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. I think there's so many gold nuggets in that book for someone who's looking to really take control of their time, take control of their life. That's got to be one of my favorites.
Cool. Do you have one for life insurance that they could possibly use? Or
The Bank on Yourself Revolution by Pamela Yellen is an outstanding place to start. There's a lot of different organizations out there that work around this concept, and I aligned my practice with the Bank on Yourself concept and Pamela Yellen, right? You'll hear infinite banking, cash flow banking, bank on you, and there's all kinds of people call it all kinds of things. And it's pretty much the same thing. Pamela does an excellent job of presenting the information in a accurate, honest, and compliant way. And I think she's done a tremendous job of getting this information out to the public in a credible fashion. So that I align my practice with her material for that reason. Perfect. So The Bank on Yourself Revolution would be a great book to pick up.
All right. I'll make sure I add that into the show notes so you guys can pick up a copy. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
My favorite dish to make. What a great question, because I'm kind of a foodie too. But I do this pesto chicken that I like a lot. So saute some chicken breasts, do a creamy pesto sauce with some heavy cream and pesto, and add some vegetables in there. Throw it on top of some pasta. It's delicious.
Yeah. I might have to try to get me some pasta. Awesome. All right. The very last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
Perfect. So I have a page that I've set up. The URL is jumponwithjohn.com, and John is John. And everyone I meet, it really starts there. We have a brief conversation. Are we a good fit? Right? No sales pitch, no nothing like that. It's are we a good fit? Are the tools that I use and the approach going to line up with what you want and what you want to accomplish? And the only way we can determine that is to have a conversation and find out. So jumponwithjohn.com is where you can request that conversation, or even jump right into my calendar and schedule it.
Perfect. All right, John, thank you so much for being on the show. We had a wonderful time talking about so many things, from life insurance, life itself, going through the possible divorce process and getting out of it. So we saw a full valley of John's story. So how is your story is going to change based on John's story, based on the things that he's been through and the downfalls that he's come across and actually came out of it. So remember, you're not alone in your journey. There's always somebody who's been through it. You can talk about it, and let's get you to that next level. I wish you all the best. Thank you all for coming through. Have a good one. Out.